Clarissa, tell us what you were seeing.
So, Brianna, we were right on the outskirts of the town of Ras Al Ain in the aftermath of those first wave of strikes coming from Turkish artillery. We believe we saw thick black plumes of smoke of at least 6 different strike targets. The air was just thick with that smoke. There was a fire also, apparently a cotton factory that had caught fire after being hit by a strike. And then what we saw was this just overwhelming wave of civilians trying desperately to get out of this town, fearful for their lives. The streets choked with traffic, cars with mattresses strapped to roofs, women, children in the back of flatbed trucks. I approached some of them and asked them where they were going, and they told me simply, Brianna, we don't know where we're going. We don't know where it's safe. They have no sense of the scope and scale of this Turkish operation. We're hearing that at least 4 different towns were targeted as a part of the first wave of this Turkish military operation. Kurdish authorities are also saying 1 civilian has been killed, 7 injured, including 2 children. And the question that everyone is asking is, what next and where next? And this is a vast area, Brianna. You're talking about a 200-mile swath of territory along that border, making it very difficult for civilians to know where exactly they should head to next. But a palpable sense of fear and concern here. A lot of Kurdish people had dared to hope that perhaps President Trump would change his mind, that perhaps the U.S. would intervene and avert this from happening. But now it's clear this Turkish military operation is underway, and it's clearly going to be bloody.
Kurdish-led forces say a prison holding ISIS detainees has been hit with an airstrike. Let's go to CNN chief international correspondent Clarissa Ward, the only journalist with an American network on the ground in northern Syria. Clarissa, tell us what you know from where you are.
So we really have a very limited picture of what exactly is going on. But according to the spokesperson, Mustafa Beli of the SDF, which is basically the Kurdish-led fighting forces in this part of the country, he says that a prison in the town of Kamishli was hit by either an airstrike or artillery. It's not quite clear which. It's not clear the extent to which the prison has been damaged or whether any ISIS fighters have been able to escape as a result. But certainly, Brianna, this is exactly the sort of concern that people have, that once the airstrikes start pouring down, once sort of ground operations really begin in earnest and Syrian Kurdish fighters are forced to go and take to the front line, that there will be a power vacuum, a security vacuum. Those prisons can either get hit, they can be abandoned, and that opens up the possibility of ISIS fighters escaping. Meanwhile, though, we are hearing that the U.S. is now saying that the 2 infamous so-called Beatles ISIS members who were known for their notorious torturing and execution of Western hostages here in Syria, they have actually been transferred from Kurdish custody to U.S. custody. That's because they are potentially expected to be taken back to the U.S. to face trial for their crimes. Having said that, though, Brianna, there are still some 12,000 ISIS fighters here, a very real threat and a very real concern that this Turkish military operation could jeopardize some of the gains that have been made in that fight against ISIS, Brianna.
And President Trump was just asked about the possibility of ISIS prisoners escaping, and this is what he said.
Some of these ISIS fighters escape and pose a threat elsewhere.
Well, they're going to be escaping to Europe. That's where they want to go. They want to go back to their homes, but Europe didn't want them from us. We could have given it to them. They could have had trials. They could have done whatever they wanted.
Clarissa, what's your reaction to that?
You know, I'm a little confused as to exactly what the president is talking about. I'm assuming he is referring potentially to the 2,000 or so foreign fighters, of which a number of them are, in fact, European citizens and have had their citizenship revoked because European nations don't really want to deal with them, essentially. But as to the issue of whether this is somehow a European problem or not the U.S.'s problem, or that the U.S. has somehow abdicated from any responsibility in dealing with all of this, given that the U.S. was leading the charge in the fight against ISIS, it's a little hard to understand what exactly the president is trying to convey here, Brianna.
With his words and his actions, President Trump has indicted himself by obstructing justice, refusing to comply with the congressional inquiry, He's already convicted himself. In full view of the world and the American people, Donald Trump has violated his oath of office, betrayed this nation, and committed impeachable acts. You know, to preserve our Constitution, our democracy, our basic integrity, he should be impeached. That's not only because of what he's done. To answer whether he has committed acts of sufficient to warrant impeachment is obvious. We see it in Trump's own words. We see it in the text from State Department officials that have been made public. We see it in his pulling much of the United States government into his corrupt schemes, individuals within the government, his appointees. But we have to remember that impeachment isn't only about what the president's done. It's about the threat the president poses to the nation if allowed to remain in office. One thing about this president is absolutely clear, and I don't think anyone can contradict this. He has seen no limits to his power, regardless of what the Constitution says. He believes the entire United States government can be corrupted into furthering his personal political needs. He's even willing to hold Congress and congressionally appropriated aid to a foreign nation hostage to his personal political demands. He believes if he does something, it's legal, period. And perhaps most importantly, he believes there is nothing we can do about it. He believes he can and will get away with anything he does. We all laughed when he said he could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot someone and get away with it. It's no joke. He's shooting holes in the Constitution, and we cannot let him get away with it.
Most Republicans are so unsure about how to play this, they're in virtual hiding. And the few who are speaking out, well, listen to House GOP leader Kevin McCarthy this morning.
You watched what the president said. He's not saying China's investigating.
Actually, he did. Listen.
China should start an investigation into the Bidens.
Some Republicans tried to explain that away with a different tactic, deflect, claiming Trump was just kidding.
Well, I doubt if the China comment was serious, to tell you the truth.
CNN contacted more than 80 GOP congressional offices about the president inviting China to investigate his political rival. Barely a handful responded, most notably Mitt Romney, who said the president's brazen and unprecedented appeal to China and to Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden is wrong and appalling. In response, the president went after Romney, calling him pompous and a fool, clearly intended as a warning to other Republicans weighing whether to speak out. It didn't stop Maine's Susan Collins, who did criticize the president, which plays well with Democrats she needs to win re-election in her blue state. She said the president made a big mistake by asking China to get involved in investigating a political opponent. But she also echoed Trump's loyalists, pummeling the House Democrat leading the impeachment probe.
The chairman of the House Intelligence Committee misrepresented and misled people about what was in the transcript.
Mitch McConnell, also on the ballot in 2020, is raising money for his Kentucky race with a promise to protect the president.
All of you know your Constitution. The way that impeachment stops is when the Senate majority, with me as majority leader.
McConnell's campaign aides argue that impeachment is galvanizing the GOP base as much as the 2018 Kavanaugh nomination fight, which contributed to several Democratic Senate defeats. Colin Powell, never a Trump fan, all but called Republicans cowardly.
They need to get a grip. And when they see things that are not right, they need to say something about it.
Some Republicans, like Rob Portman of Ohio, are now starting to follow a roadmap laid out by Fox's Tucker Carlson, who penned an op-ed admitting the president should not have encouraged a foreign leader to investigate his political opponent, but said that is not an impeachable offense.